Everybody, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have somebody here on the podcast who knows way more than I do about SEO. I love SEO and I love trying to figure it out, but I only know as much as I know, and I know that I don't know what I don't know. So Brandon's here to kind of make that come clear for us, and I'm excited to have him on the podcast. He represents an amazing company. SEO Optimizers.com is the website. You got to go check them out. We'll have links in the show notes as always. Brandon's here to talk SEO. So go grab a drink of something and join us because we're going to have a great conversation. Brandon, welcome to the How to Podcast series.
Thank you for having me on today.
It's exciting. Where are you in this great big world of us? Where are you?
I am in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California. How are things in your part of the world? Are you guys okay? Do you have friends and relatives in your community that have gone through some really tough times lately?
Luckily, all good, but
Good.
yeah, just dealing with those fires that happened recently. But other than that, just yeah, we're getting more rain, so that's what we need out here.
There you go. Awesome. That's great. I'm glad you guys are safe. Talk a little bit about SEO Optimizers. Talk about the company, what you guys do, who you help. Let's start with that. Let's open the conversation there.
Yeah, SEO Optimizers helps businesses get more traffic to their website using search engine optimization and just trying to help you get more exposure, more visibility. So when people are searching on whatever search engine, Google, Bing, Yahoo, ChatGPT, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, doesn't matter where you're searching. As long as you're searching somewhere, there's ways to optimize to help you get more exposure, get more visibility without having to spend money on paid ads. And essentially that's the main thing, is trying to get you that free traffic.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit more about your team. Who do you have on your team helping you there?
Yeah, so we help out small and medium-sized businesses, whether you're local or e-commerce. Those are the two more popular top or industries. Well, not any industry specific, but those are types of businesses that we help out, but really agnostic to any type of industry, because as long as it doesn't matter if you're a plumber or dentist or a podcast, it's just changing the keywords and change the strategy stays the same for SEO. It's just changing those keywords to reflect your business or changing those backlinks to reflect your business, but really just trying to help businesses. And I've been doing it since 2007. Just kind of fell into it after I graduated from school, got my degree in business marketing. And one of the first jobs I got out of school was helping a company out with their digital marketing, which I didn't really know much about it back in 2007. They don't teach it to you in school.
Yeah.
And I told the company and they said, don't worry, we're new to this as well. And we're going to learn with you, taking you to classes and workshops and seminars. And after doing that for a few months, just realized this is the future and everyone's probably going to have a website, and SEO is just a way to get free traffic. And worked at different advertising agencies as a director of SEO, and before work, after work, and on my lunch breaks, I'd work on my own company, and eventually built that up to where I was able to quit my job and been doing this ever since.
Nice. Amazing. I love it. Okay, so let's unpack a little bit because we have podcasters who listen to the show, Brandon, at all different stages in their podcasting journey. Some people are just starting. They don't even have a mic yet. Like they haven't even got to that point. And the whole idea about SEO, they think they know what it is, but they're not really sure. And then I have podcasters who listen to the show. They've been podcasting forever. They think they're doing things the right way, but not seeing the results as well from being found in all of these great places. So can you just level set us right off the bat, Brandon? SEO, explain it to us in really simple, like grade 8, grade 9 level, so we all understand where we're starting from. Can you just start us with that as we get going here?
Yeah, SEO is search engine optimization, and that means optimizing pages or content for search engines, which it can be Google, it could be Yahoo, it could be Bing, it could be DuckDuckGo, it could be ChatGPT, it could be Amazon, it could be searching on Spotify, on TripAdvisor, on any website where you could search. There's ways to optimize and help you rank higher so you could start capturing that free traffic. That's really what SEO is all about, just trying to get you free traffic from websites.
Okay. All right. What exactly are all these different platforms looking for as a result to give to the person who's initiating the search? What's important to a Google, a Spotify, a ChatGPT what do they prioritize as a good result to offer up to a user?
It's different for each platform,
Okay.
but in general, like Google is looking for good content, good quality backlinks. But Spotify, I don't think they're really looking at backlinks. YouTube will look at backlinks, but each platform is different. Like social media is not going to really look at backlinks. They're going to look at social signals, how much engagement, watch time, how long people watch your content. Like Spotify is probably going to look at how long people listen to your podcast. If they listen to it for 30 seconds and then drop off, bad signal. Unless your podcast is only 30 seconds,
Yeah.
perfectly fine. But they look at that stuff and those just tell them intent. Like so like Spotify and all that, they're gonna look at reviews because there's not too much place. You can't really customize your Spotify episode. You can put a title, a photo, a description, but after that, you can't really put more text. And search engines love text. So anywhere you could add more text is always going to be more, it's always going to be beneficial. So if you could put text in your images, of file names, of video file names before you upload them to those platforms and describe what those images are, describe what those videos are, because Google can't read images, they can't read videos yet. They're getting much better at it, but they still struggle heavily on that stuff. And the more you spoon feed them, the more they're going to reward you with higher ranking. So anywhere they could add more text, add more content, get reviews with text because reviews have text. The more text, the better off you're going to be.
Okay. Unpack for us, for me, again, we have people listening who might not know what this is. Backlinks, what are they? And also, where do we put backlinks? Can you explain that as well?
So the way Google works is Google looks at keywords on a website and says, we don't trust anything anybody puts on a website because too many people have tricked us over the years that
Mm,
we don't care about any keyword anybody puts on a website. We're not going to rank you without you building trust up. And Google said that about 30 years ago, said, we're not going to look at keywords. We're going to look at backlinks as a ranking factor because all these search engines in the 90s, they just looked at keywords. And I could build a website and say brandonsdentist.com. Google's like, are you really a dentist? Because we don't want to just send people to your dental office and find out you
mm,
don't exist. It's a bad user experience. And if that happens enough, you're not going to use Google. You're going to be like, I'm going to Bing or Yahoo or some other search engine.
right.
Google doesn't want that to happen. So they want you to make sure that you have a good user experience and, or I mean, that you're trustworthy. And the way that they look at that trust is through other third-party sites mentioning you. The more websites that mention you, the more popular Google thinks you are, the more trust Google's going to give to you, and the higher they're going to rank you. Essentially, you need to build what are called backlinks. And backlinks are clickable links from another website that points to yours. So let's say you're reading an article on Forbes.com. In there, it says Brandon Leibowitz. If you click on that and it goes to my website, I would be getting a backlink from Forbes.com.
Mm-hmm.
So the more websites, the more third-party websites that have clickable links that point to your website, the more trust Google is going to give to you. And then they look at those keywords. It doesn't work the other way around. If you're
Okay.
not building backlinks, Google's not going to look at those keywords. If you're building backlinks, Google's going to trust you. And then they're going to be like, all right, now that we trust you, what is your website about? And then they're going to look at your content, your keywords, all the technical coding changes that you've made to figure out what keywords should we rank you for. But without backlinks, I've never seen a website rank on Google without backlinks. You need backlinks.
Okay. So yeah, so I had recently, for my podcast, I use music in my podcast. So I use a website called storyblocks.com, and that's where I can get music, and I pay them and I download music. They reached out to me and said, can we do a blog post about you and what you do on your show? So on storyblocks.com, there's actually a blog post with my website, my links to my website, and a whole thing about what I do here on the How to Podcast series. So that would be a great backlink, supported by Storyblocks, which is highly recommended website, a lot of traffic. It's well established, linking to me as a link back to my show and my website. That's a good link then, right?
Yep. It used to be a numbers game in the early 2000s. Google said, if I have 100 backlinks and you had 200 backlinks, you would rank higher than me. But now it's not the number of backlinks, it's the number of quality backlinks.
Quality.
And to Google, a quality backlink means it comes from a site that's related to what you're doing. That's number one. So if you're getting it from this music site, that's fine because you're using that for your podcast. It's content. But if you got a backlink, like if I gave you a backlink, that might look a little weird. Like, why is an SEO company giving a podcast a
Hmm.
backlink. So the more relevant, the more niche related it is to you, the better off those backlinks are going to be. And then the bigger the site too. Like if I give you a backlink, it's good, but it's not the same as like a Forbes or a New York
Right.
Times or LA Times or Wall Street Journal. So the bigger the website, the more SEO value, but also relevancy. The more related it is to you, the better off it's going to be.
Okay. Any value in having, like, for example, I have an author podcast. So I have the author's website when they come into my show that I link in show notes. I put on my website. I do blogs about them. Is there any value in having their backlinks as a guest on my show? And also, where would I put the backlinks? Would it just be my website? Would it be the show notes for my audio podcast and my YouTube channel? Like, where should I put those links to get as much potential value out of those links in my podcast?
You want people to link to you. By you linking to other people, you're helping that author out.
Okay.
Google does look at who you link to, but it's not the biggest impact because Google knows I could just go on my website and I could link out to Wikipedia, I could link out to Amazon, I could link out to everybody, but that's not going to get you to rank higher because Google knows anybody could do that. Google wants those third-party sites to link out to you because Google knows how hard it is to get a Wikipedia to link out to you or get a New York Times to link out to you. It's very, very difficult. So you linking to the New York Times, you're just helping the New York Times rank
Yeah, I
higher.
get it. Okay, that
It
makes
helps you a
sense.
little. Google does look at who you link out to, but it doesn't really have that big of an impact. But it is helpful. Like if you write an article, like if you have me on your podcast as a guest and you blog about it, it would make sense to link to my website. But and that's going to help Google say, all right, this page is a good user experience because it has all the content, it has Brandon's episode in here, it has a link to his website, but that backlink is more going to help me than it's going to help you.
Okay. All right. So we ask our guests to share our podcast, to share our website on their in their newsletter and all that. That's one way that we can use our backlinks then, right? They're linking back to us and talking about their experience on our show. That could help us then.
Yep, as long as I link to you.
Yeah.
But if you link back to me, it cancels it out.
Oh, wait a
It
minute.
is
Okay, explain
uncircled
that. Explain that. That's
because
interesting.
yeah, Google knows all the tricks. And if I link to you, you link to me, Google knows that's the easy way to get backlinks. If I link to you, you link to your author, the author links to me, Google knows that. If we get 1,000 people all together and say, I link to you, you link to them, you link to them, Google's all going to pick up on that. Google's seen that, I think, about probably like 2010. Google started picking up on those link wheels where it's like, so if I link to you and you link to me, there's no SEO value. It
Just
cancels it
cancels
out.
it out. Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
So
because Google doesn't want you. Google knows there's so many ways to game the system, and they want you to work to get those backlinks. And to get someone to link to you only is very difficult. And they say, all right, if someone's only linking to you, we're going to give that one a lot more weight, a lot more emphasis, a lot more value.
okay. Anything we should not do then around backlinks that might be hurting us in SEO?
The backlinks are the number one thing that I see issues with people where they buy backlinks. Like someone I
Hmm.
spoke with earlier today, they had 184 backlinks, which is a lot of backlinks. Most websites need around, I'd say like 100 good quality backlinks. They had 184 backlinks. And I was like, all right, they must be ranking for a lot of keywords and they don't rank for anything. And I looked, and back in June of 2024, they went from 0 backlinks to 100 to 200 backlinks in like 1 month. And then from there, it's just been dropping every single month.
Hmm.
And that looks very suspicious to Google. Like if you had 0 backlinks and then you jump to 200,
Hmm.
I mean, maybe you went viral, but then you should keep getting more backlinks. You shouldn't have them drop off. And all
Yeah.
these backlinks are coming from sites that are not related to what they're doing from other countries. And so it's all about quality versus quantity. One good backlink could be better than 1,000 low quality backlinks. And these low quality backlinks can actually do more harm than good. Instead of ranking you higher, Google will penalize you and drop you down, which is the last thing we want to happen to anybody.
Okay. Enough. I'm learning. We've been out together for what, 22 minutes? I've already learned so much from you already, Brandon. Okay. What about, okay, owning our piece of the internet? Okay, I have some real estate that I purchased, and I was able to take one property and turn it into two and all that. And I know the power of equity, and I know the power of owning my space. So owning my real estate really works for me and my wife. On the internet, owning your piece of the internet by buying a domain that you own that you will have the keys to. It belongs to you. Your .com, your .ca. In Canada, we have .ca, whatever that is, whatever. You own a piece of the internet that no one else has. Tell me about the value for a new podcaster or somebody with a business around owning a website, link to what you do. Good, bad. Would you say to somebody new thinking about going out and grabbing a domain for whatever they do?
Domains are invaluable, and it's kind of like renting or owning. You
Mhm.
could put your podcast up on Spotify, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Amazon, iTunes, all those places, but you don't own any of that stuff. And they could take you down anytime. And there's ads on all those. There's so many distractions of you give after this episode, if you gave me a link to YouTube and say, hey, here's your episode on YouTube, I'm going to share that episode on YouTube with my audience. But by the time they're done watching that video, there's going to be ads. There's all these distractions that you're going to lose that person and they're going to forget about you, unfortunately. But if you have your own website, that's where you have full control. You own it. You own that forever. Like Facebook could take your page down. Facebook could say you have copywritten music and
Right.
take you down. And then getting a page back is very, very difficult, if not impossible. Most of the times, it's not really possible. I've seen a few times where people get the content back, but it's really, really difficult. And if you want to own everything, you need to have your own website. But the biggest thing is you have full control and you could put your messaging out there. And once people get to your website, they're not going to see other ads. They're not going to see other distractions. There's no friend requests. There's no notifications. There's no other episodes, maybe your own episodes for them to watch, but there's no other third-party episodes or
Yeah.
competitive episodes to distract them. And the biggest thing is, though, you own that website and you could start building it up and start collecting emails, collecting people's information, which you can't really do that on social media or all these other podcast platforms. I mean, a good starting point, if you don't have a website, is like Buzzsprout or Podbean. But even then, I would say you still need to have your own website and embed the Buzzsprout player on your website. So essentially you make an episode or you make a blog post on your website for every episode. And a lot of people are like, I don't know what to blog about. Well, if you're doing a podcast, every episode is a great blog post to put on your website, embed the YouTube video, embed the player on that page, and then share it with your guest. Because then your guests are going to share your website with their audience. Like if you post on your website the link to the podcast, I'm going to share that on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, all these platforms, and I'm going to get your website more traffic. But if you just post it on Spotify, I'm going to share Spotify with all my audience, and Spotify is going to get a lot of traffic, and you're just helping Spotify get more
Mhm.
traffic. I mean, so you need to have your own website. It's really important. It's not that expensive.
Yep.
And if you don't know how to build a website, Buzzsprout and tools like that will just kind of give you a cookie cutter website, but it's better than nothing. And it's better than just having Spotify. You need to have your own website. So very important.
Okay. So I go buy my domain and I own the domain. It's mine. So I have howtopodcast.ca is my website for this show. Because I'm in Canada. So howtopodcast.ca, when I first had it, I didn't have the bandwidth or the time to create the website, but I own the domain. So I just pointed it at a different site for now until I had the time to build a website. So I wanted to be able to talk about my website on my show. Go to howtopodcast.ca and you'll have all the information for me. So, for example, I might point it at my LinkedIn or I might point it at my Facebook, something public facing that people could still get in and see it without having to log in. As I said, I redirect my website to somewhere else for now as a starting point. Not the best for a long-term solution, but for now it fills the gap. And then once my website's ready, I repoint it back to me, and it's my website where I own everything, right? When I have my website, Brandon, and I point it at somebody else, like I do in the beginning. So say I point them at my Instagram for a period of time. Who benefits when they click on howtopodcast.ca and they end up on Instagram? Do I benefit or does Instagram benefit?
You're giving Instagram a backlink. So another strategy for building backlinks is you buy expired domains and you redirect them to your website. So let's say, for example, you're an auto mechanic and you see that one of your competitors is going out of business. If you buy that URL and redirect it to your website, you're going to get all that company's SEO value pointing to your website.
Mm.
So by you redirecting your website to someone else, you're just giving that other website all the SEO value. But it's not bad because it's a short-term thing, and in the long run, you're eventually going to build it out on like WordPress or something like that, which is a free platform, is very easy to use, word very user friendly. But in the meantime, I would probably point you to like a Buzzsprout, because
Okay.
if it's your podcast, you want to send it to like a podcast player, not a LinkedIn or Instagram, because it might confuse people.
Okay. All right. So I send them to Buzzsprout then. Would Buzzsprout be the beneficiary of my all my good SEO juice if they come to How to Podcast and I ended up on Buzzsprout?
Yep, all the SEO value gets attached to a URL.
Okay.
So if your URL is not pointing, if you do what's called a 301 redirect and say, for example, Barnes and Noble's bought books.com. So if you go to books.com, it really goes to barnesandnoble.com.
Right.
But books.com has a lot of SEO value. And all that SEO value is now being sent to barnesandnoble.com because they did a 301 redirect. So if you redirect or forward your website to another website, whichever website you forward it to, you're giving them a backlink. So books.com is giving Barnes and Noble a backlink. And books.com is a pretty good website to have a backlink from.
Right. Okay. What if I'm looking at my address line at the top of my website and you have your www dot or whatever, and then it says a different company's name and then slash the name of our podcast or the name of our business. When I look at the complete address line, the www dot, and we'll put anything in there, brandon.com/Dave, who gets the benefit of that website? You as brandon.com, if that was your website, or /Dave, am I benefiting at all by pointing people to brandon.com/Dave to find me on your site? Does that give me any benefit at all?
For SEO, no, you need to build backlinks to your website.
Okay. So we need to own the experience of the website and have it under our name to gain all of the value for that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So one thing I've noticed too, Brandon, is I've bought domains for pennies. Like there's no history for this website. No one's ever used it. I created this podcast or business and no one's ever used these words before. I got the .com or I got the whatever. Like no one's ever touched this before that I can tell. So I grab it. And it's really valued very low because it's never had traffic. It's never been used. But over time, I'm getting information back from my domain host that my website's growing in value. Like it now it's worth $3,000. Now it's worth $5,000. Like there's equity being built up over a period of time where people have been coming to my website. I'm building this traffic. I can see there's all kinds of indicators that there's activity happening. And the value of my domain, my .com, my whatever, is going up. What's happening there? Like how is my value going up? And my website's worth more over time. I don't understand.
I think unfortunately that's just GoDaddy and all those hosting companies trying to trick people to buy domains for more than they're worth, essentially.
Do we
Because
gain
what is a
equity?
domain worth?
Yeah. Do we gain
What's the New York
equity?
Times worth? What's
Yeah.
Wikipedia worth? Like putting an arbitrary number up, there's no way to put a dollar value up. But I know that GoDaddy and those sites will always say, hey, this domain's worth this much, but is it really worth that much? Like, how do you know? And the
Interesting.
way you really know is you got to look at the SEO, look at the backlinks, look at the keywords they rank for. But GoDaddy is just gonna make arbitrary numbers up.
There you go. And they can just ask whatever they want then. Interesting. Okay. See, is there equity that we can build over time by having a good website that gets lots of traffic, it's good results? Is there something like in real estate where your house goes up in value over time? Is there a value to a website that grows over time?
Yep. Yeah. People look at your domain authority, your SEO, how much sales you're getting. I mean, if you're trying to sell a website, they don't care about traffic. They don't care about how much of your website they think, unless it's a domain, like a URL, like
Yeah.
sex.com sold
Yeah.
for like a couple $100 million. So if it's a URL, they don't care. Like if it's a one word keyword, books.com,
Yeah.
food.com, those ones have a lot of value. But other than that, they're going to look at sales and they're like 10 times sales for whatever your website's worth. So if you're selling $20,000 a year in sales, then you might sell your website for 200,000.
Okay. All right. What about on other things outside of the typical internet? So let's go with our listening apps. One of the things I hear from podcasters all the time is that search on Apple, Spotify, Audible, whatever, is notoriously not that great compared to Google and compared to all these other great sites online. To go to a player app and search, people are finding that it's not the best way to be found. Any tips for these third-party players and stuff like Spotify and Apple, for example, on how maybe our podcast could be found in a sea of podcasts?
It'd be having a good title with keywords, a good description that you write as much as you can in that description. Like I was saying earlier, the more text, the better. If it says write 500 words and you write 100 words, not good enough.
Hmm.
You write 500 words, fill everything out, name your files with keywords that describe what the image is, what the video is, what the audio is before you upload it to those players. And the more places that you can just reinforce those keywords, the more likely they're going to want to show you. But none of that really matters without the trust signals. Just like Google wants backlinks, these third-party sites want engagement. They want to see how long people listen. So
Hmm.
if you do everything and people only listen for a minute and your episode's 30 minutes, not good. But people listen to 29 minutes of your 30-minute episode, that's good. And then they're going to start recommending it to more and more people.
See, now that makes sense because when people come to Apple and they come and press play on Brandon's podcast and people bounce after a minute, that's a bad experience for Apple. They don't want that. We want people to stay longer, right? So anybody who
Mhm.
comes to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anytime you can get your listener to stay to the end or close to the end as possible, that retention rate's really, really important.
Mhm. So very important. I mean, they don't have to listen to the end, but at least listen to like half of it. Because I
Okay.
mean, people drop off, there's stuff that you have to do, but if they just
Yeah.
listen for like a minute and then hit that back button, that tells them like probably not the best. But if they listen for like 15 minutes
Okay.
of an hour-long podcast and then they leave, that's fine. They might come back in a couple days and pick up their left because an hour is a lot of time for someone just to dedicate to a podcast in their day.
Okay. There's one question around titling your podcast. So if I have the Dave podcast, not a highly searched thing, right? Nobody's going to look up the Dave podcast primarily as a search on Google or Spotify or Apple. But having something, so I try to title my show the How to Podcast series because it's got how to podcast right in the title of my show. One thing I hear people talk about is having a title for your show, and like a book would have a subtitle. So you have a title, colon, and then an extension to what the book is about. Is there any power and value in that extension beyond the actual name of the show? So it's the How to Podcast series, colon, podcasting tips, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Is that extra piece at the end of any value for us at all, Brandon?
Only if your title is really short. So if your episode title today was just called SEO 101 and then How to Podcast Series, that's a really short title. Titles should be about 60 characters. After that, it kind of gets cut off. So you want to try to get as close to 60 characters without going over for anything, whether it's a blog post, an article, website content, a video, a podcast, anything that you're putting out on the internet. The title should be about 60 characters. After that, it kind of gets cut off. And you want to try to put as many keywords as possible without repeating yourself. So if your title is only 30 characters, add more.
Okay. What about the actual just name of your podcast? The actual name of the entire show, not the episode level, but the title for the entire podcast. Any special things we should know about that and be found?
I mean, having keywords is good, but you don't want to jeopardize the name just to throw keywords in there. But
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to have some extra keywords in there as well. The more places that you can put keywords, the better.
Yeah. So I had an example just last week, Brandon, where here in Canada, I had a teacher who teaches grade 6 class on technology, and she was looking for a podcast to listen to as the teacher so she could teach her class. She went on Apple and she typed in how to podcast. 3 words. That's it. Guess who showed up? The top of her screen on Apple, my show showed up. She pressed play and went, oh, this guy's in Canada. I'm in Canada. So I'm going to reach out to him. And 2 days later, I taught a class of 22 grade 6 girls about podcasting for an hour because she found me on Apple. So to me, one of the things I always ask people when they meet me for the first time, Brandon, when I get them on Zoom like this, is how did you find me? Like, how did you find my show? Because I want to do more of that. If nobody tells me ever that they've ever found me on Facebook, and I spend 12 hours a week on Facebook, I could maybe take some time away from that and focus somewhere else. So she found me on Apple from How to Podcast. So I know it works because I have proof. It happened last week. Anything else that we can do to be found on these third-party apps to kind of just make us a more robust way of being found? Is there any little things that we can do for our show?
I mean, having the title, How to Podcast, is great, but that won't rank you alone. But if you've had all these episodes that all have the word How to Podcast in it at the end of the title, that's going to help you. So just creating a podcast and only having like a few episodes isn't going to move you up the rankings, but you've been doing it for a while. So you've had all these episodes that have that word on it, How to Podcast. Google associate, or whatever platform they were on,
Yeah.
associates it. The same thing Google used to do is, if I had the website howtopodcast.com, I would rank for the word how to podcast. But Google realized about like 10 years ago, you just buy what's called an exact match domain. And Google said, we're devaluing that because we don't want people just buying the word books.com to rank for the word books, because it's kind of like a little cheat code, but definitely still has emphasis and still has some rankings. And on all these other platforms, these third-party sites, they are much less sophisticated than Google. So they probably still have a bigger emphasis on the podcast name, but Google really devalued it. And I'm confident that all these platforms will eventually devalue it because it's just a little way to game the system, but it might work temporarily. And if it does on iTunes or Spotify, great. And I try to name everything I can with keywords. Like I had a podcast, I named it like how to get more sales and leads using SEO. And I just name it Brandon Leibowitz because I want to put those keywords in there.
Smart. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I like that. Um, so this whole world now we got on tapping on our door, Brandon. We've got AI, we have ChatGPT, there's Perplexity, there's Claude, there's all these things. There's probably 5 new ones while we're talking right now. So all these AI search engines competing in the space of search over Google and fighting with each other. And there's kind of a lot of noise around search right now. Anything different that we should be doing if we want to rank on some of these AI platforms like Perplexity and ChatGPT? Is there a different way of being found than compared to traditional SEO in the past? Anything changed at all?
Surprisingly, not much. They're just pulling rankings from schema. So
Hmm.
Google, Bing, and Yahoo about 15 years ago created schema.org, a programming language. And when you search on Google, like if you searched on Google 10 years ago, like what's the score of a baseball game? It'll tell you the score right there because that's being pulled in from schema on that website. Or if you search for how old is a celebrity, it'll tell you right there on the Google search. You don't even have to click onto the website. It gives you the answer right there. That's called the featured snippet. They've been doing that since like 2013, which is kind of what the AI overview is, that now Google has this AI overview, which is just a feature snippet. It's all pulled from schema. Same with ChatGPT and all these platforms, all these AI tools are just pulling from schema. So best practice is you should always have schema on your website because it's really, really helpful. But if you want to show up in the AI, you got to make sure you really do have schema on every single page on your website. And that will help you show up in those AI search results. Also, it's a lot of like questions and answers. So if you have questions that people commonly ask and answered on your website, you'll show up in the featured snippet. You'll show up on Siri. You'll show up on Alexa. You'll show up on all these voice search. You'll show up on AI, ChatGPT, and Gemini and Perplexity and all these different platforms. But a lot of it is like questions and answers. It's not really transactional yet. We'll have to see when that becomes transactional, but really it's more informational keywords. But ever since 2013, Google's been taking informational keywords and giving you the answer right there in the search results. So AI is just a new way to brand it, kind of. It's like, I mean, AI could talk to it, which is a little different than Google. You can't really talk to it and have conversations, but AI and Google have been doing this for over a decade. So it's nothing really new. It's just new that you could have it write content for you. You could write articles. It could code for you. It could do all these things that Google can't do for you. It could code schema. So if you don't know how to add schema, ChatGPT will create the schema code for you, and then you put it on your website. But AI is not accurate, and it's going to have those AI hallucinations. If you just copy it verbatim, it's a good starting point, but it's not going to be perfect. And you got to read through and double check everything that AI puts out, even with the code. That schema code will be like 90% good, but that 10% is going to have incorrect information, and Google doesn't want the incorrect information on the internet. So just be aware of that. But schema is like the little cheat sheet for that. But you should always be using schema in general on your website.
Okay. All right. The one thing I noticed though, when I go to like say Perplexity or ChatGPT, instead of giving me like pages and pages of results on Google for a search, it narrows it down to a pretty well one answer summary defined response, not multiple that I get to choose from. It's one. And I know on Perplexity they give you links to all the sources, which is kind of cool, but you're getting like a very narrow result instead of a wide result on Google, for example. So how are we in the 2025 and beyond going to be found as we get a narrowing and narrowing of results to single results to a search? How do we even how can we compete to be found in a world of search compared to Google, which gives you pages and pages and pages of search results? How do we even compete?
Well, Google gives you pages, but at the top, they give you the answer right there. And they've been doing that for over a decade, giving you the answer right there, which is almost the same thing as AI. It's just Google will give you the answer, but they'll give you 10 other options on that first page of Google with ads and all these other
Yeah.
distractions and noise. But Google's been doing that for a while, where they just pick whichever one they think is the best answer, and they'll give you that right there. So if you're searching for like how to like cook chicken parmesan, they'll give you some of that right there in the search results without you even having to click onto that website. So Google's been doing that forever. It's really that schema. And yeah, traffic's just been dropping since 2013, probably once they started introducing the featured snippets. But those are all just informational.
Okay.
And if you want transactional, that's a little different. So if you're like selling a product, people aren't really going to ChatGPT to say, I want to buy the new Nike shoes. Not yet. I mean, eventually it will
Mhm.
become transactional, most likely, because how are they going to make money? They need to run ads. That's how all these platforms make money. $20 from each user to get a premium account is okay, but that's not going to make them the amount of money that each click on an ad would make. Because Google, when you're searching on Google, each time you click on an ad, those ads could cost $1 per click, could be a $20 per click. Some of those keywords are $100 for one click that a company is paying Google. So they're all going to eventually have to go ship to that platform or to monetize somehow more than that $20 a month.
Okay. Um, yeah, because I'm kind of finding that search is kind of feels like a little bit of a vacuum now, where if we all went to just searching on AI, that we don't get the kind of the robust results that we might be lacking. So, for example, I kind of compare it to a playlist on Spotify. I can grab all my favorite songs, put them on a playlist on Spotify, and only listen to my playlist. Never listen to new music. Don't know what's going on in the world. I just stick with the songs I love. So I live in this little vacuum of this is only the music I want to hear. I don't want to hear anything else, just this. And in that, I feel like I'm missing out because there's new music every day, there's new artists, there's new songs. But I just feel like sometimes AI and search and all of that feels like we're living in a little bubble and we don't know what's going on around us. So I just want to be able to bring in as much search results as possible and to be found in as many different places as possible. So I want to be everywhere. That's kind of the hope for every podcast, to be everywhere so people have the possibility of finding us. So any other things that we should be doing with our website, with our podcast to help us to be found in more places?
I mean, as long as you optimize for Google, Google is much more sophisticated than most of these other platforms. And if you
Okay.
optimize for Google, your website, you should be good across the board, but you just got to employ those same tactics that we're doing for Google to your podcast or to your YouTube video or to your Instagram post or to your Facebook post or whatever it is. Trying to think of like, how do I make sure I name the file name before I upload it to these platforms with keywords? How do I make a good caption, a good description, good keywords, good titles? And another thing is like for audio, Google can't really understand audio. So transcribing your podcast or timestamping it or summarizing it helps out a lot,
Okay.
especially for long form content.
Okay. All right. You've been amazing to give us this much time, Brandon. I really appreciate it. For people who are curious about the schema part of it, they've never delved into that. They're not really sure how to do any of that. Is there a resource and you point us in a direction to make sure our websites have this schema framework behind the scenes?
If you just Google schema validator,
Okay.
Google has a tool that will validate your schema, but you have to check on every single page because every page is going to have different schema. But if you don't have schema, you could have ChatGPT help you, but again, it's not going to be perfect and you have to tweak it. So you might need some help, or you might need to have a little bit of coding knowledge to be able to do it, or need to reach out to someone like myself, but it is important to have that schema.
Okay. So we can do that. We can reach out to you and have you walk us through that and help us with that.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a great resource right there, everybody. That's worth listening to the podcast and listening to it to the end, right? Yeah, yeah, that's worth it
Mhm.
right there. I love that, Brandon. Thank you again for doing this, Brandon. I could talk to you all day. You have other things you need to do as well. So I just want to give you another opportunity to talk about what you do, how we can connect with you, maybe something that we haven't talked about that your business and your team can help us with. Please, anything that you'd like to promote about SEO optimizers, I'd love to kind of do that here at the end.
Yeah. So anyone that wants to learn more, I create a special gift. If you go to my website at seooptimizers.com/gift, that's SEOoptimizers.com/gift. And they can find that gift there along with my contact information and a bunch of classes I've done over the years. I've thrown up for free so they could see step by step how to do a lot of stuff that we talked about. And also, if they do have a website or a podcast, they could sign up for a free website analysis or podcast analysis, and I could check it out and let them know what's working, what's not working, and how to get them to that level that they're looking to be at for free.
Wow. Again, another reason to listen to the end of the episode. That's where all the great stuff is. So everyone that's listened this far, make sure you go and check out Brandon's website. Go talk to his team. I'm sure they'd love to help you with all of your SEO questions. And the resources are going to be there for you. I love this, Brandon. Thank you so much for doing this, for all your wisdom. I know we probably just touched on a few things, but we could have gone really deep, but you've really helped us to understand things and put it in real simple language, which is great for the audience. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing this, Brendan. I really appreciate you making time for us.
Thank you for having me on today.
Excellent, everybody. As always, all the information is in the show notes. We'll have links to everything that we've talked about on the show. Brendan, again, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.